before we go to the finiteness, I just wanted to mention a thought about this example. एक भी लड़के ने मेहनत नहीं करनी चाहिए. Just about the syntax of this example. So the question is, how would one bracket this example? Okay. So what I think is, so initially you probably have something. One is tempted to do something like this. Okay. But there's an issue here with if you do it like that, then the question is, how does this nahi take matrix scope? Okay. So of course one could say, well, maybe the nahi, there is some kind of abstract process by which this nahi moves around, but generally elements like negation don't themselves take scope. They take scope, but what I mean is they don't seem to move around covertly. They usually they're interpreted where you see them. So one thought, and this is not a thought that I have worked out, but which suggests itself is something quite radical, that actually the structure here is, maybe I'll draw this on a tree. So first we have to ask ourselves, how does nahi get to be where it is? Okay, why do we say Ram ne phal nahi khaya? So one idea that Rajesh Kumar had in his dissertation was that neg is actually higher than, let's say this is asp, this is v, something like this, so v asp neg. But then what happens in Hindi is that basically v and asp of course combine, and that they adjoin to negation, or they move past negation, however you want to do it. Let me just move them past negation. Okay, so let's say this, and then you have v and asp like this. Okay, so that operation basically takes the v and asp and takes it to a position above negation. Okay, so now in order to derive the right scope for this, what you would have is something like this, that you would start, so let's say in the embedded clause you have your v, which is khana, so eat. Then upstairs you have want, and then you have neg. So what's going on is that this, and this is different from what I've told you so far, these two things combine to give you something like eat want, and then that eat want ends up here. Okay, so in here you have actually a trace of eat, and then you have eat and want sort of together, and then you have your neg here, and this whole thing moves past this. Okay, so this is making some very strong commitments. It's making a commitment that when you get neg, eat, want with the high scope of neg, that eat and want are forming some kind of unit.
Rajesh, sorry, you're going, how are you, so where, can you just specify where you place the neg?
Okay, so let me walk through this. So I'm assuming that the neg p is very high, the neg p is above want. Okay, then when you have a simple clause, no embedding, then what we do is that the verb moves to a position above neg p. So let's say in Hindi, nahi is sitting in somewhere in neg, and the verb plus aspect moves past neg. So nahi, so the underlying order would be khaya nahi, and then the khaya moves over nahi. Okay, so that would give you the simplex clauses. In these clauses, what I'm suggesting is that possibly eat combines with want, and then eat want moves past the negation. Okay. Now this is a very speculative idea, but it makes a prediction that when you do have neg eat want, when you have this order, then somehow eat and want have formed some sort of cluster. We should do, I don't want to do the tests here, but this has certain predictions, right? That it will be difficult to separate eat and want when they follow negation. I don't know if that is true. In fact, I would be a little bit surprised if that is true, but it would be interesting. It would be very intriguing if that is true. So that's the idea. So that with these kinds of verbs, the structure is transparent enough that this verb can move up. Okay. I'm not saying that it always moves up, and I'm also not saying that this is what there is to restructuring. It's just that when you have a restructuring verb, it might give you a structure where this movement is possible. Okay, so that's, yeah. Okay, that's all I have to say about this. Now to finiteness. So finiteness is something which is very easy to see in some languages and then not so easy to see in other languages, right? So in English we have in English it's the finite elements are the elements that agree, and apart from the modals, so there's the modals and then there's the elements that agree, and there's a very fixed position where they appear. Now just agreement is obviously not enough, okay, for the languages that we're looking at. Agreement itself does not tell you whether something is finite or non-finite. A lot of the things that we've been looking at today, right, for LDA, they have been infinitival clauses, and yet they have agreement. So that's not what is going on. So let's list some of the things. I list a bunch of things that, at least in Hindi, indicate finiteness. So some of these are going to be partial indicators, in the sense that if you find these, you have finiteness, but if you don't find them, doesn't mean non-finite. Okay. So in a way, the clearest cases in Hindi of finiteness, so we can list, at least for Hindi, we can list some environments where we find finiteness and then we can reason about them. Okay, so anytime you get the present ox or the past ox and the future and the subjunctive. These cases are fairly clear cases where you have where you can reason that you have finiteness. Okay. In all but one of these, you also have person agreement. So person, there's no person here, but person and person. There's this. Then we can. So these are the clear cases, and then in some cases we can be relatively sure that we don't have finiteness. So this is the cases that I was talking about, like Ram phal khata. Okay, so we have a very clear intuition that what's missing here is a tense specification, right? Ram phal khata, Ram phal kha raha. These two cases we can say, so on this side we have finite is so habitual participle Or another example would be Ram ko Delhi jana hai versus Ram ko Delhi jana. Okay, so gerunds, infinitives, gerunds slash infinitives, and progressive. Okay. So then we are left with cases. So also there's one other way of separating these two classes, which is, as I said, right, Ramphal Khata is no good. It's not freestanding. So we're working back from the idea that freestanding clauses are finite. Okay. Only finite clauses are freestanding, finite declarative clauses. So imperatives, we don't know what's going on with the imperatives. I'm not making any claims about them. Okay, so freestanding clauses are finite. That's what we're going with. So these are, I think, the relatively clear cases. Now we come to the difficult case. Okay, so the difficult case involves the simple past. Okay, so the simple past does not have an auxiliary and it's happy without it, right? Ram ne phal khaya. So where should it go? By the freestanding test, it should go on this side, but by the fact that it's missing like something like an obvious tense specification, maybe it would go here. I'm going to give you two tests which will throw it on this side as opposed to that side. One of them I think might be very Hindi specific. In fact, I'm pretty sure it is pretty Hindi specific. Okay. So that test is the following. So remember that I talked about the fact that Hindi has these two probes. There is the finite probe, which has person and number features. And then I said that there was a non-finite probe, or the participial probe, which had number and gender features. Right? So the shape of the classic probe is, so I'll just do the endings. So this, let's say, masculine, feminine, singular, plural. Okay. But, and then I mentioned that the probe, this guy looks like it has a non-finite probe, but the box for this is different, slightly different. It's A, E, and E. Okay. So for Hindi, my proposal is that finiteness, either you have this or you have this. So all and only so if basically you get this kind of an ending, then you know that you have a finite verb. Okay. So by this metric, the simple past will fall here, because ladkiyan kal aayi, not ladkiyan kal aayi, right? So since that has this ending, I'm not giving you the actual argument, but I'm giving you a way of cutting the pie, right? But let me now give you what I think is a better test, which is something which actually, this is what I've done here is basically use the intuition freestanding, non-freestanding. Okay, so I'm taking the intuition that freestanding clauses are finite and non-freestanding clauses are, well, they may be finite or non-finite, but if you cannot be freestanding, you're not finite. Okay, and on the other hand, if you can be freestanding, you're finite. So that's the initial cut. And then I tried to give you one more something to connect with that, that freestanding, that what I'm calling finite, they either have a person agreement, right? So they have either a person probe or they have a special participial probe, okay? So they have this special four-way probe, this one, and not this one, okay? But now let's think of a slightly different characterization of finiteness, and that is, can we form NP, and let's just call it XP, NP, can we form a reduced relative using this form, okay? So let's start doing some tests, okay? Kal aayega ladka. That's no good in Hindi. Okay, so this is, okay, unfortunately again here, I think even this test might be complicated in Marathi because Marathi relative clauses are much freer than Hindi. So even this diagnostic, maybe we'll be able to find something like this, but we'll be able to separate them. But in Hindi, the generalization is that if you have, so first I'll do these four. Actually, maybe I'm going to start. So this case I'm not going to do right now. Well, maybe we can even do this one. So infinitives can be used to form wala relative clauses. Kal aane wala ladka. Or, and then in somewhat more restricted context, you can say, like there are these cases, I don't know how to analyze them, like peene ka pani, peene wala pani and peene ka pani. So you can get that, but with the wala, so these guys can combine with wala to form a reduced relative, and these guys can also form reduced relatives. So Gana gati hui ladki, or phal kha raha bandar. Okay. Now, what's very striking about these? So, phal kha raha bandar is good in Hindi, but we discussed earlier that you cannot say bandar phal kha raha. You have to say bandar phal kha raha hai, right? So you might expect that it should be okay to say phal kha raha hai bandar. It is good, but as a sentence, phal kha raha bandar bada natkhat hai. That's fine. But phal kha raha hai bandar bahut natkhat hai, that just does not work. You cannot have the auxiliary and form. Actually, this might be interesting to check in Marathi. Like, can you do this? Can you do the put the actual test of? So okay, so then this test works there too. Okay, so what we see is that these guys very clearly cannot be used as prenominal modifiers of NPs, while these guys can be used. Okay, so let's now come back to the tough case. Okay, the tough case is the case of the past participle. Okay, there it looks like you can form reduced relatives. Okay, so you can say दिल्ली से आए हुए लड़कों को बुलाओ. Okay, that seems like a very good reduced relative. Okay, so what's going on? Is it then right to put this guy here and not there? Okay, so let's look a little further. So in this case, I had chosen an unaccusative predicate. I. Ana is, motion verbs are often unaccusative. But suppose I choose a transitive predicate, okay, like khatna. So now if I do something like अमरूद काटे लड़के को बुलाओ. Very bad, right? People are like, what is that? So see what I did here was I tried to make a relative clause on the subject position, right? लड़के ने अमरूद काटा, अमरूद काटे लड़के को बुलाओ. Completely bad.
Your first construction was Delhi se aaye hue hai.
Yes.
So it's kind of ablative.
No.
Se aaye hue.
Yeah, but लड़के दिल्ली से आए हैं.
Similar construction with काटना would be जब उसे काटे हो काटा हुआ अमरूद.
Yes, yes. But I agree that that is the grammatical form. But why is my form bad? Why? Hmm? Yes, again, yeah, so that's it. I agree. I am one. So, what both of you are saying is, why don't you relativize the object? And I'm saying, why can't I relativize the subject? So, we are saying the same thing from different angles, and that is the key point here. That it looks like we can use the past participle in a reduced relative. But actually what is happening in a reduced relative, when we form a reduced relative using what looks superficially like the past participle, it's not the full past participle. So imagine that your structure is, the normal full structure has the little VP with the agentive head and a subject position, right? Another kind of thing that you can create with the past participle is a smaller structure which does not project the agent. And so the only thing that you can really target is the internal argument. So in effect, so let's step away from Hindi for a minute and go back to English. So the situation that I'm describing is exactly the same as in English. So you can say the boy eating the monkey eating the apples, right? But you cannot say the boy eating the apple. What you have to say if you want to use this is basically the intuition that you guys were expressing. You have to passivize the object. And actually what I think is you're not really passivizing the object. What you have is a smaller structure in which the subject is just not there.